My name is Ya Chao. I want to talk to you today about the death knell of evolution. I have had conversations and debates with many atheists and found that they all think they have good reasoning and strong logics and have already concluded that there is no God. They also believe that we are the result of evolution, but is evolution dependable? Is there any scientific evidence for evolution? Evolution is a theory proposed by Charles Darwin. A theory is something of a conjecture which has not been proven. Evolution states that all organisms are evolved from non-living things, and that all species are evolved from a single cell. Therefore, its theoretical basis is from simple to complex and from disorder to order. However, the second law of thermodynamics, a proven theory, tells us that in a closed system, it is from order to disorder. Some may argue that the Earth is not a closed system. Nonetheless, from our life experience, things are from order to disorder. For example, if you don't clean your house, it will become a mess shortly. Therefore, the evolution theory seems to contradict the proven law. Hence, its dependability is questionable. Is human rationality reliable? We might have had this experience in which two lines are equal in length, yet the top one appears to be longer. Our reasoning often is heavily influenced by arts. In this MTV generation, many wrong messages are packaged into beautiful music and visual effects. They go right to our hearts without getting through our minds. We have seen pictures like these without thinking through carefully. We feel it is very reasonable that all species are from one single cell and we humans are evolved from the chimpanzees. Is evolution dependable? If evolution is correct, it would take a long time for one species to evolve to another. But we all know animals' life is rather short. A species would have died when evolving halfway. Therefore, we should have transitional fossils as a result. Yet the biggest problem of evolution today is this missing links. We haven't found fossil that links between two species. Some years ago, some said they found one. It is called Archaeoraptor, which was the halfway species that evolved from reptile to bird, and that they have the fossils to prove that. But under careful scrutiny, Archaeoraptor was found to be a hoax. Evolution has another principle on natural selection, which is survival of the fittest. Is it correct? Let's look at the salmon return. Salmon is an amazing animal. Its spawns and its eggs fertilized in fresh water. Then its figlings migrate back to the sea. No one knows how long a salmon travels in the ocean, but when a salmon grows to be about 25 to 30 pounds, it journeys back to its birthplace to reproduce. Salmon runs. The journey back to their birthplace in some upper stream of a river is a tough one. So many of them end up being eaten by bears or die before reaching their spawning grounds. However, since there are so many of them, a great many successfully back to fulfill their task of reproduction. Just look at it, how strong their lives are. A salmon lives almost its entire life in the ocean. It does not need to come back. Even if they do, they could have spawned in gentler waters. Why spend so much strength and endure so many hardships? Exactly how a salmon finds its way home is a mystery. So salmon are very smart, but humans are even smarter. Because we want to raise the fertility rate of salmons, we use artificial insemination and then raise the little salmon to a certain size before releasing them into the river. In a town near Seattle where I live, there is a salmon hatchery with a little dam. One time I went to videotape during the salmon spawning season. One could see that the salmons were trying very hard to jump to upstream. Unfortunately, the dam blocks their way. It was not possible for them to jump over. You can imagine how painful it would be when the salmons hit the dam. But they just kept trying. After a while, they gave up and swam back into the hatchery. Here's another video showing the fish that came from the hatchery, trying desperately to go back to the hatchery where they were born. Immediately after they spawn and fertilized, they die. So if you go to the upstream of the rivers in the spawning season, you will see there's corpses all over the places. We know living things always have the tendency to find the easy way out. No one wishes for hardship. If the survival of the fittest, natural selection is correct, salmon don't need to return. The most amazing thing about the offsprings of salmons is that without their parents to teach them, they do the exact same thing over and over again, instinctively. There is a Chinese saying, rivers and mountains may be easily changed, but natural tendency is hard to alter. Salmon return because God gave them the striving upstream and unyielding life when He created them. To conclude, evolution is not reliable and is undependable. Still, many die-hard atheists argue that there are many other evidences pointing to evolution. For example, the anatomies of the limbs of some different animals look similar, hence the proof for evolution. Let me argue by saying, if a company designs an electronic equipment or computer, it will use many commonly available parts to build the machine. If you look at two similar machines from two different manufacturers, they would possess many similar parts. Can you say one machine is the result of evolution from the other? That would be absurd, wouldn't it? And yet that is how people reason for evolution. These so-called evidences are nothing but God using similar parts to create all species. Besides, when God created, there was no reason not to use the same parts again that had been proven perfect. Furthermore, can human be the result of random chances? If there is unlimited time, it is theoretically possible, but in actuality, it is impossible. We will see why. You can buy lottery in many states. Where I live, you can buy lottery by choosing 5 numbers from 1 to 60, then another number from 1 to 40. If your combination is drawn, you will win a big sum of money. The total possible combinations of numbers is this, divided by the number of different permutations. Therefore, the probability of winning the lottery is less than 2.75 times 10 to the negative 8th power. So the chances of winning is very small. We have tried many times, but have not had any luck of winning, yet we do hear some people did. In 1953, a brilliant graduate student in Chicago University named Stanley Miller did an experiment. He put the chemical elements of amino acids into a lab container with heat and electrical shocks. There came the amino acids. The picture on the right was taken when he became a college professor. The experiment became so famous that people declared it as the proof of evolution, because living organisms can be derived from non-organic elements. Many said this was the origin of life. Now there are 20-some amino acids. This one is the simplest one, called glycine. Each amino acids come in two forms with the same chemical components. They are different but are symmetrical, just like our hands. They are called the left and the right-handed amino acids. When Miller did the experiment, there are half left-handed and half right-handed amino acids in the container. Just like some people may have without hands, while some other ones may have 3 hands. But on average, we have 2 hands, one right and one left. Let me use probability to examine if a typical protein can be formed. There are 20-some different proteins. A typical protein consists of 400 amino acids chaining together in a series, and all of the 400 are left-handed. In fact, you cannot find any right-handed amino acids in any life form. All are left-handed. Before diving into the details, I need to mention a fundamental theorem in probability theory. That is, if an event consists of consecutive sub-events, then the probability of the event is the product of the probability of the sub-events. This means you multiply all the sub-events' probability together to obtain the probability of the desired event. So what is the probability for a typical protein to be formed? Let's simplify things a little bit by not considering all the 20-some amino acids, but only consider the fact that all the amino acids has to be left-handed. Since all 400 of them must be left-handed, the probability of the protein being formed is like tossing 400 coins in the air and all of them turns up. Since the probability of an amino acid to be left-handed is 1/2, so applying the probability theorem we just mentioned, the probability of the protein must be less than 2 to the negative 400th power, because we multiply half 400 times. But how small is 2 to the negative 400th power? We apply logarithm. We found it to be less than 10 to the negative 120th power. It is so small that our brain simply cannot comprehend. Drawing the analogy of winning the lottery, the probability for a protein to be formed is equivalent to winning the lottery 11 consecutive times. You know, it is very hard to win the lottery. If you win it once, you are very lucky indeed. If you win twice, you are ridiculously lucky. If you win in 3 times, then the police will probably come to investigate if you are cheating. You see, very often no one wins. So the prize money accumulates to a huge prize, and many will be waiting in line to buy the tickets. You see, we have heard about winning the lottery, but can you believe that anyone could win 11 consecutive times? One is crazy to believe that. Now, how long does it take for a protein to be formed? Before doing so, let's think about the age of the Earth we live in. There are many different estimates. Let's suppose the age of the Earth is 1 trillion years old, which will be many magnitudes greater than any of the estimates. How long does it take to form a protein whose likelihood of happening is 10 to the negative 120th power? As in the analogy of coin tossing, how fast can you throw to get all the coins turning up heads? There are about 31 million seconds in a year, but let's round it up to 10 to the 8th power seconds. Let's assume that at the place the first protein was formed, there were constantly 1 billion mutations per second, though in reality that is simply not possible. Nonetheless, let's suppose it is true. Then it would mean 10 to the 17th power mutation per year. With this speed, how long would it take to form a protein? It is very simple. You just take 10 to the 120th power divided by 10 to the 17th power, which would then give you 10 to the 103rd power years to get the first protein. But remember, a while back, we have assumed the Earth to be 1 trillion years old, which is only 10 to the 24th power. It is simply not enough time to get the protein. Scientists estimated that the Earth has 10 to the 50th power atoms. If you get every one of them to evolve at the same time, still not a single protein would form. Therefore, it's not possible for the first protein to be formed via evolution. Now, protein is the most elementary thing in biology. We now know about DNA. The human gene is extremely complex. With the help of the computer, we have DNA completely mapped. Do you know how complicated it is? There are 3 billion nucleotides, each of which has 4 possibilities, using 4 characters A, C, T, G to represent them. DNA is the secret code that governs every organ of our body. It is like an intricate language, more significant than a long masterpiece of literature. Nowadays, we have some health issues because our DNA has some defects. So we know that when the DNA was evolving, it would not afford to make any mistakes. Otherwise, it wouldn't survive. Now the probability of DNA is no longer 2 to the negative 400th power. It is equivalent to 4 to the negative 3 billionth power, which is virtually zero. Just think of it. If the first protein could not be formed, how in the world can the DNA be formed? If you don't have the first cell, how do you evolve? Some die-hard atheists may argue that even the probability is small, it doesn't mean it couldn't happen. Theoretically, that is true, but the problem is that the probability is so small that there hasn't been enough time to be successful. Some also pointed out that DNA is derived from RNA, which is much easier to form. But that still doesn't work. Remember, I talked about the probability theorem. In a consecutive event, no matter how easy some of the sub-event is, the probability of the whole does not change. In the process of forming DNA, RNA may be easy, but the rest of the process must be very hard. Therefore, human cannot be the result of random chances. Evolution cannot stand because first, the theory of evolution does not match our experiences of things move from order to disorder. Second, the missing links prove evolution is impossible. Third, the first cell cannot be formed from random chances. Fourth, the human DNA is so complex that it is impossible to evolve. Thank you for watching. May God richly bless you.